Nia DaCosta, the director for the Marvels, is blaming fans for the failure of the movie, calling them racist, homophobic, sexist, virulent, and whatever word that you can think off the top of your head. Now, this is a very common trend that has been going on for quite some time. For a while now, off the top of my head, the people that would blame the fans, us, you and me, in terms of a movie's failures can go back to, I don't know, Elizabeth Bank and Charlie's Angels, the remake? Or how about Andy Muschietti with The Flash? There's some kind of blaming thing going on here, and whenever we look at something like that, we're thinking to ourselves, oh my god, like what the hell? Like, can you not accept responsibility for your own actions? It took me a while to think about this. Granted, this has been about a week, but I had to think long and hard in terms of why is it that directors in Hollywood keep doubling down to blame us, you and me. I went on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, Outside the Comics Volume 2, by the way. You can check that out on Spotify and iTunes or anywhere else you consume your podcast audio. Little plug in there. I went on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the news broke that Brie Larson was disillusioned with her character as Captain Marvel. And throughout the entire time, I'm thinking to myself, okay, she is self-aware that people are not responding kindly to her playing the character. In other words, they're not the ones that are really buying into her acting performance or her the character as a whole. Because of what she's done, because of who she is, whatever the reason you see fit. And I had to think about it. I had to put myself in her shoes for me to think, what exactly would that do to someone like me? Think about this for instance. You auditioned for a movie, any movie, and you have the chance to have millions upon millions of people all around the world, specifically women and children, to look up to you and view you as their hero. That you are Captain Marvel, one of the most badass characters in the history of the MCU, in the history of comic book lore in general. And yet, one movie, the fans turn against you. What would that say to someone like that? Could someone in my inner circle let me know, hey, this is not going as well as you thought it was, therefore, I think it's time to pull the plug. I think it's time to push back. If I'm putting myself in her shoes, I have to do the same thing for the directors, do I not? If I'm a director with limited experience, being in charge of a $270 million movie, and yet it bombs and it backfires, what can I say? What can I say to explain to the higher-ups and to the people that have casted / hired me to actually be in charge of this project? They want answers. Of course they do. They want answers. What the hell happened here? I could double down and say, well, I had a vision. And it didn't work out the way I wanted to. It didn't solidify what I was trying to get across to the media, to the customers. I apologize. It won't happen again. I know I'll do better with the next movie, and the next, and the next. The corporate guys are not going to want to hear that. The ones that are in charge of their stock prices and their money-making machine and their one-track goal in mind is to make that moolah that's going on. They're not going to want to hear that. All they hear is, oh, it's your fault this movie failed, therefore you are fired. You are fired and we will get someone else that will do the job better that's going to make us money. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. I don't have the experience of working in Hollywood. Maybe, and by the way, I'm not excusing accountability or personal responsibility. But I am saying there's more to this than what's going on here. If you personally have experience in working in a corporate environment, you know that no matter what the excuses are, it doesn't really matter. All they care about is making money. And the moment that someone would be truthful and honest and humble and come out and say, I take responsibility, they're going to place you to blame. Now, maybe she is prideful. Maybe her ego is so big that she can't escape the tunnel vision of what goes on in the outside world and realizing that, hey, the people that you call sexist and homophobic and misogynist and everything else, granted, there are people like that in the world. This is the real world. We know this. But they don't contribute to over $100 to $200 million in ticket sales. It's impossible for people like that to even be equal to something like that. Maybe she is the stuff. Maybe she's not. So, if we're going to keep the trend of people continuing to place blame upon people like you and me, just keep an open mind. There's something else that goes on behind the scenes. You don't know it. I don't know it. But it's just my guess. And it's a pretty damn good one.